G'day possums, welcome back to the lab. I've purchased a Hewlett-Packard Signal Generator, the HP8656A Signal. This is part 3, and in the previous episodes you saw me replace the capacitors in the power supply and fix the attenuators. And today we're going to disassemble and fix those dodgy keys on the keyboard at the front, plus clean the gold contacts underneath. Enough talk, let's get started. The problem with this keyboard is some of these keys are very clunky and they're very sticky. There's some that are missing their spring back, like this key here, the minus key down below. And this is a keyboard like any other keyboard that you find on your computer, except it has different characters here. So instead of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and just the QWERTY and everything like that, it has different symbols, but essentially it works the same way. So what we're going to do is we're going to tear out this front panel and then get into the nitty-gritty, and we will rejuvenate this keyboard. So we'll push on with that right now. I carefully removed the plastic trim from the top using Stanley the knife. Remove the 2 top screws. Detach any adapters on the RF output. Remove the nut from the RF output. Upside down, Miss Jane. Remove the other 2 screws underneath. Use Stanley the knife to pry out the front panel. Watch out, some parts could fall out, so gather them up. This is the front panel, fully extracted from the chassis. I pull out the primary connector, unsecure the modulation input wire. I remove the 14 small screws. Separate the display and keyboard assembly. Undo 11 nuts. Remove the keyboard from the front panel. I desolder the modulation input wire. I remove the 3 wires that connect the power switch to the primary connector. I unscrew the power switch and pull it through. We have our keyboard here extracted from the front panel of our signal generator, and what we have here is we have a matrix, and that's how it actually encodes the signals going back into the signal generator. So it's all organized in columns and then rows this way. So what would happen is you might have your first column here, column 1, this might be column 2, this might be column 3, column 4, and all the way across to maybe column 8 or 9, all through here. And then you may have 6 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So for example, if you hit the internal 400 Hertz key, that might be column 1, row 4. Or if you hit the off key down here, it might be column 1, row 6. And if you hit the FM key, this could be column 2, row 2, or maybe row 1, whatever the case. So it works on the intersections of columns and rows. So you only need, like, 14 or 15 signal wires here, instead of, if this keyboard has roughly 50 buttons, instead of 50 signal wires. So that's actually how they cut that 50 signal wires down to 14 or 15 at this connector here, using the column and rows method of encoding whenever you hit a key or a digit or whatever the case may be. Modern keyboards today work with the exact same system. The coordinates go back through here and they go back to a keyboard decoder chip, which turns those columns and rows into the appropriate letters and numbers and characters. So yeah, all fairly well simple. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at a few of these dodgy buttons. We're just having a look under the microscope and we can see this amplitude key has collapsed. It isn't springing back. But if we have a look at the one underneath the up arrow, when we push it down, you can see that spring steel in there bulging, and it just pops the key back up again. And in the amplitude section, we've got that little bit of spring steel missing. And here it is. It's past some of the crap that just dropped out when I took the front panel off. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our spring steel back in. The top of it is secured actually under the key itself, and the bottom of it actually secures down this end. So we'll put that spring steel back in and we'll see how we go. We're just going to slide in our little spring steel, push it through the little hole. That's it. And I'm going to use a plastic spudger because spring steel is magnetic. I don't want it sticking to the tweezers. And if we just give it a bit of a push, so that looks like it's in place now. So we're just going to lock in the other end of the spring steel. Just going to try and lock this in and not stuff it up. There we go. Push it down a little bit. That looks all fine. There's only one way to test it. That looks good. Now I'm just going to quickly do the rest of the keys. There we go. The last one always has to be difficult. This keyboard is huge. It's about 400 millimeters wide, or 16 inches in the old money. So I'll just put in a huge tub. I'm just going to pour over some isopropyl alcohol, 99% as usual. And I'm using the good isopropyl alcohol. We're not using rubbing alcohol because rubbing alcohol is only 70% pure and it's shit. Just going to give everything a bit of a brush over. Get rid of any crap on the board. And to clean the contacts underneath, I'm just going to hit a few of the keys. About a dozen pushes each. And I'll slowly work my way across this keyboard from right to left. Just going to give it a bit of a slosh. Get the alcohol to wash itself around the keys. Now after a good rinse, it's time to put it outside in the sunshine to dry. We're just going to test our keys to make sure they work properly. I'll bring up a multimeter. And Let's put on this little test contact here. Press down. That's all fine. We'll check our down button. Let's get our probe in here, it's pretty tight. There we go. That's fine. And we can't really test this key here because it's got no test point. So we'll just make an assumption that that works. Now, a word of warning, before we put this keyboard back in the HP SigGen, I actually use minimum intervention here. I just put in the spring steel, I just tested the switches, we washed it in isopropyl alcohol, but I didn't take out any individual switches, and that's because all the contacts are fine underneath. And the problem is when you take out any of these switches, they are thermally staked at the back, and they're a pain in the ass to take out and then put back in and restake. And every time you restake one of these joints, it gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And guess what? You can't buy these keys anymore. They're almost impossible to get. You have to get an old junked SIG generator. So if the contacts are all fine underneath, don't stuff with it, don't fiddle, don't touch it. Just clean it all out, drop in the new spring steel if you've had any pop out, and just leave it as it is. There's instructions on how to remove a switch if you have to, and that's in the HP operation and servicing manual, and there's copies of that online. I'll leave a description down below. But minimum effort here, it's all working. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put this back in our SIG generator, and we're going to do that right now. The SigGen is all back together, and all my keys or buttons on the keyboard all seem to work quite well. In the next episode, we will check the cooling fan at the rear. It's bloody noisy. Don't forget to check out all the videos in this series in the description down below when they become available. If you're interested in seeing other stuff repaired, check out the rest of our channel. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe. It's time for me to go get a kebab. Hooroo, and I'll see you next time in the lab.